This is Rabbi Shlomo Riskin, who Jeremy and I are very close with. And this, the rendition I actually took directly from my dear friend, Rabbi Tuli Weiss. Anyway, so Rabbi Riskin told the following story about Rabbi Yekusiel Halberstam, who is the spiritual leader of the Sanz Klausenberg sect of Hasidic Jews. And Rabbi Halberstam's wife, 11 children, and the vast majority of his followers were murdered by all the Nazis while he was incarcerated himself in Auschwitz and several different concentration camps. And after the war, he survived miraculously, and he resettled in Brooklyn with a small remnant of his Hasidim, who survived as well. And they took over the Beit Moshe Hospital in Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood, and they converted to a large study hall and a synagogue. Anyways, Rabbi Riskin related how as a young boy, he left his home on Hart Street in Brooklyn on Shabbat, the Shabbat of Parshat Ki Tavo. The year was 1952. And he wanted to pray with the Klausenberg Hasidim. He was a 12-year-old boy. He wanted adventure. He wanted to experience Hasidic prayer and perhaps even meet Rabbi Halberstam himself. Anyways, the young Rabbi Riskin, who was not a rabbi at the time, he was the young little Shlomo, he did this knowing that the Torah reading included both the blessings God promises for following his commands, which are beautiful, but also the 53 verses that describe the punishments in store for Israel when they forsake Hashem's teaching. Here's just like a little bit of a taste in there. We're not going to go into everything. If you don't obey the Lord your God and all his commandments and statutes, then these curses shall come upon you. God will smite you with consumption and with a fever and with an inflammation and with an extreme burning and with the sword. God will turn your rain to dust, and it will come from the skies and destroy you. And your corpses shall be meat for the birds of the sky and for the beasts of the earth. God will smite you with madness and blindness and the confusion of the heart. God will bring a nation from afar against you, from the ends of the earth, swooping down like an eagle, a nation whose language you don't understand, a haughty, arrogant nation who has no respect for the old or mercy for the young. And there's so much more. It's a nightmare. Now, Jewish tradition mandates, I don't know if you all know this, but if you go to any synagogue, you hear this, even till today, that you read these verses with a low voice, like even a whisper. In synagogue, you can barely hear it. That's the tradition. Reading these verses in this way, I find that it makes it even more dramatic and shocking. But it just makes these scary verses just more terrifying. I'm not sure that was the intention, but either way, that was the custom. And the man reading from the Torah that day in Rabbi Klausenberger's shul in the synagogue did so in a soft, whispered voice. And the young Rabbi Riskin, the young Shlomo, was shocked to hear Rabbi Halberstam. Jeremy, have you heard this story? Rabbi Halberstam, he's standing at the lectern. And he commands in the stern whisper, he says, Hecher, which means louder. And the man reading from the Torah stopped in confusion. He was deliberating a few moments. He was torn between the tradition and his understanding of what the rabbi seemed to be commanding him to do. And the congregation was also confused. Could it be that the rabbi, who's an expert in Jewish law and Jewish tradition, was ordering them to break this tradition? So the Torah reader, he resumed his chanting from the Torah in sort of a whisper, adhering to the tradition. And then Rabbi Halberstam began banging on the lectern with his fist, raising his voice and yelling in Yiddish, Hecher. I said, louder. Read these verses out loud. We have nothing to fear. This is what Rabbi Halberstam was saying. We have nothing to fear. We've already experienced the curses. Let the master of the universe now hear them. Let him know that the curses have already befallen us. And let him know that it's time for him to send the blessings. And so the rabbi turned his face to the wall of the synagogue, probably most likely hiding his weeping, while the Torah reader continued, this time in a loud voice, chanting those curses in a loud voice to the stunned and confused congregation, Shlomo Riskin included. This is how Rabbi Riskin actually described the experience. He said, I was trembling with tears cruising down my cheeks. My body was bathed in sweat. I had heard that the Rebbe lost his wife and 11 children in the Holocaust, but he refused to sit Shiva, to mourn for them, because he couldn't spare a moment from the task of trying to save Jewish lives by enabling them to leave Europe. He himself refused a visa for America until the majority of his own Hasidim, his own followers, had been saved. his words seared into my heart. That's what Rabbi Riskin said. And so after the conclusion of the prayer service, Rabbi Halberstam addressed the whole congregation. He said, "My beloved brothers and sisters, pack up your belongings. We must make one more move, hopefully the last one. God promises that the blessings which must follow the curses will now come. They will come, but not from America. The blessings will only come from Israel. It's time for us to go home." And he was true to the word. You know, Rabbi Halberstam led his followers to Israel, and he founded a new community called Kiryat Sanz, which is in Netanya, founded in 1960. It's still there until today. And so Rabbi Riskin, he was 12 when he heard these words, and he credits them, those words, that experience, to his own courageous and historic move in which he took many of his congregants on their own Aliyah journey to settle the barren hills of Judea. Now, to this day, he's still the chief rabbi of Efrat, and he's established a whole network of high schools. And Jeremy went to his high school, actually. So you can thank Rabbi Riskin for Jeremy, or blame him. I'm just kidding. No, colleges and graduate programs and seminaries and rabbinical schools and all of it, he credits to that faithful Shabbat of our Parsha in the synagogue in Brooklyn of Rabbi Halberstam.
This highlight was taken from the Land of Israel Fellowship. Every week, hundreds of families from literally around the world come together on our live Zoom sessions to strengthen each other, to inspire each other, and to learn Torah from the Land of Israel, in which we connect the dots between the Bible, the Hebrew language, and the confusing events of our times. Go to www.thelandofisrael.com/fellowship or click on the link below to join. Thank you.